Hey everyone, welcome back to Satisfactory News. For our first tutorial after the launch of Satisfactory Update 4 Experimental, we decided to cover something simple: drones. Drones are a brand new way of transporting items. It's incredibly resource and power hungry and doesn't transport many resources at once, but it can do so quickly across long distances and is probably a lot faster than setting up a long belt or a train. In this video, we're going to talk about how to set up drones and how to use them. But first, before doing so, I have some work to do. You see, drones require a brand new item called aluminum casing, and aluminum production overall has been significantly changed in this update. When I went to go check on my aluminum production, I found a few issues. For one thing, I remembered that all of my excess all-clad aluminum sheets were going to turbomotor production and the rest were being stored. And what do you know, turbomotors have been changed as well, and they no longer require all-clad sheets, but that's neither here nor there. When I went to go get some all-clad sheets that were in storage, I realized that something was wrong. There weren't any. So something was up with my alumina solution. Where did it all go? When I went and visited where I was making alumina solution, I realized that my train was actually broken. It was just sitting in the station, not doing anything, and certainly not giving me any alumina solution, so that was great. Not sure how long that's been like that. Too long, apparently. Once I got that up and running again, I still had some work to do. While aluminum scrap required petroleum coke before, it now needs coal. Or at least that's what I thought. It turns out that the primary and alternate recipes were switched around and I was too focused on getting my aluminum back up and running so I could make this guide that I didn't even look at my alternates. Luckily, this wasn't too difficult to set up, at least temporarily. I grabbed some coal from Coal Lake, you know Coal Lake, and hooked it back up. I'll probably switch back to coke once I take some more time to make things clean and more efficient and figure out all my recipes. I also set up new pipes for the silica solution just to make things fancy. Then we needed a foundry in order to combine aluminum ingots with copper ingots where it used an assembler before, and I think this change makes more sense, honestly. You'll need the all-clad sheets not only as an ingredient to create the drones and drone ports, but also to create radio control units which go into the construction of those as well. Okay, so that's a quick overview of the aluminum adjustments you'll probably need to make in order to create drones, so let's get to the drones themselves. You'll want to start with the drone landing port. This thing is huge, so make sure you have enough space for it. It needs to be connected to power, and it also needs a power source for the drones, that being batteries. So, at least on one of your drone ports, include an input of batteries, which is a whole other craziness using the new nitric acid. Each drone port also has one input and one output. If you're using two of these to transport items from a satellite base to your main base, the far-off drone port would have an input and the port in your main base would have an output, which could go to a production line or storage or wherever you need it to go. Now you can build a drone. It doesn't really matter which port you first build the drone on, but it'll make more sense to build it on the port that has the input so it can immediately grab its cargo. The drones are pretty adorable, honestly, so take some time to appreciate these wonderful models before you continue. There's a ton of little animations and it's got a cute little face. Next, open up the control panel for one of the ports. Here you'll be presented with a rather complicated screen, so let's break it down. You can name the port just like train stations to make them easier to identify. In the outgoing and incoming sections, you'll see any items that are currently in the port waiting to enter a drone or to leave the port. These drones work like most things in Satisfactory, so if you've been playing around with drones in other factory games, you may be confused when you look around for where to request an item for the drone to pick up. It will move whatever is being belted into the port building, just like everything else in this game. You'll also see information about the transfer rate, which will help if you're involving the items in a production line and want to be perfectly efficient. To make sure you're getting enough batteries to power your drones, you'll see how many batteries are being consumed per trip and per minute. In the This Port tab, you can set the destination port. Once you set the destination, you'll see a list of relevant ports, which right now should only be the port that you selected as your destination. You'll also be able to select a destination for that port here, which will probably just be the original port again. And that does bring me to one of my favorite parts about the drone ports, is that you don't need to go around to each individual one to set up routes. Everything can be done from just one port, because it detects every other port in your game. So I wanted to know what would happen if I made a third port. So I created 3 ports, made one drone, and set up the drone to go from port 1 to port 2, then to port 3, and then back to port 1 again. However, that didn't happen. It seems that drones can only go between 2 ports, regardless of what your instructions say. My drone decided to return to port 1 after it docked at port 2. I think this makes sense though, considering that it could still have some of its cargo on board if there wasn't room to unload it all. It's probably a good thing. And the solution to this problem is just to build more drones. The second drone I built went between ports 2 and 3, so just one more drone would finish the circle and have one going from 3 to 1. Just make sure to build each drone on its own home port. For example, building a drone on port 2 will cause it to go to port 3 in this scenario. It's also entirely possible that in my testing I ignored something glaringly obvious, or that the experimental branch was patched and changed how drones work, so if I messed up here, please be kind. Despite the intimidating screens, the drone system isn't really any more or less complex than setting up a system for trains or trucks, it's just different. Unfortunately, they're just not as efficient as those vehicles, but they make up for that given how useful they are for transporting resources over rough terrain. Setting up belts or trains can be ridiculously difficult when there are forests and mountains in the way, but setting up drones will take a fraction of the time and ignore all of those environmental obstacles. Alright everyone, that's pretty much everything you need to know how to set up drones in Satisfactory Update 4. What I want to know now is how you're planning on using these, or do you already have a solid transportation setup and don't have a use for the drones? Let me know in the comments below, and also comment any other questions you have about setting up drones, and we'll do our best to answer. See you in the next Update 4 tutorial video.